All right, we got the last section of chapter one here. We're going to talk about Spanish Conquistadores to the spread of Spanish America. So Columbus came here, thought he discovered America, and he didn't ever set foot in the United States of America. He didn't actually discover anything. But what it signified was the shift in population, the arrival of the Europeans permanently, not temporarily like the Vikings or maybe even St. Brendan, but the permanent arrival of the Europeans is what 1492 represents, and it's a change for world history forever. Because of the new discoveries in Africa and the New World, the papacy, working with Spain and Portugal and the Iberian Peninsula, signed the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494, which divided the heathen lands, the uncivilized lands of the New World with Portugal. Sometimes it's called the line of demarcation. It was later moved further west instead of cutting the Atlantic in half, moved further west. So Portugal got a little bit of the New World. Portugal received lands in Africa and Asia and Brazil. In 1500, one Portuguese sailor took a little bit of a wide turn and hit Brazil in accident. But that line of demarcation was moved in 1500, and the Spanish got the rest of the New World. They didn't really know everything was there, but it was theirs. The conquistadores began to explore the New World for Spain. They were commissioned by Ferdinand and Isabella to basically go and explore, and they only had to give a certain portion of what they found to the crown, and they were there for the three G's: gold, glory, and God, which usually in that order: gold, glory, and God. They had to give 1/5 of their gold back to the crown. The rest of it they could keep. Now, a lot of these were not very noble gentlemen. A lot of them were second and third sons that weren't going to inherit anything. And so they came to America for wealth. Some were fame seekers. Some were adventure seekers. That was their order of business: gold, get rich; glory, become famous; and make sure we convert those heathen natives or Indians into Catholics, or if they don't, just let them die. Vasco Nunez Balboa discovered the Pacific Ocean in 1513. He climbed over the Isthmus of Panama, saw the Pacific Ocean, which was a big deal. Ferdinand Magellan and his crew were the first to circumnavigate the globe in 1522. Although Magellan did not make it himself, he was killed in the skirmish in the Philippines by the natives. They carried his body, though, and they sailed around the world. And so the crew was Magellan, like felons, the old commercials, and Magellan was dead. Sorry, Ferdinand. And then once Ponce de Leon explored Florida from 1513 to 1521, looking for the Fountain of Youth. Obviously, it's not there since Florida has a lot of senior citizens. Some people call it God's waiting room. And then Francisco Coronado explored the American Southwest from 1540 to 1542. Even came through what is today Colorado, mainly in southeastern Colorado, looking for El Dorado, the cities of gold, all the biblical legends and things like that. They started looking for Fountain of Youth, Garden of Eden, El Dorado, which I'm not sure that's actually in the Bible, but there was legends of cities of gold and things like that. And then Hernando de Soto explored the southwest, and crossed the Mississippi River. He was the first European to do so that we know of, unless it was some random dude who just didn't tell anyone. So here's some of the explorations of what the United States was. Ponce de Leon, I believe, was one of the first. He was the first Spaniard to explore the United States of America. You have John Cabot, or Giovanni Caberto. I think I've made up that last name. Who was Italian, but they made an anglicized name. Who explored up and down the coast of the eastern seaboard. You have De Soto. You have Coronado. You have Cabeza de Vaca, which is cowhead, basically. Who explored Texas and parts of Mexico. And then you have the French, La Salle and Champlain and Cartier and Marquet and Juliet. Oui, oui, I don't speak French. Parlez-vous français? So the conquistadors, wrong way. Some of the major ones: Francisco Pizarro conquered the Incas in 1532. The mighty Inca Empire conquered them. By 1600, Spain was wealthy from the influx of precious metals from the New World, so much so that the prices rose by 500%, which was great for people that brought in the gold, but for average peasants and then the average Joe, or Jose in Spain, They couldn't afford food anymore because if food prices went up 500,000% or 500%, you'd be a little upset. Your little hot and spicy McChicken would be $500 instead of a buck. The dollar menu would be a $500 menu, and I think we'd have riots, and McDonald's would probably get burned to the ground. And that's what's going on in Madrid and Barcelona and places like that in Spain. It led to the birth of capitalism, which is that's what we're pretty good at here in the United States. We're kind of known for it, and so capitalism was born. Modern banking was born. Holland and France thrived as merchants. You get the Medici, who secure more of their fortune largely from banking and things like that. And so it's the birth of capitalism. Commerce and manufacturing spread in Europe, and it really reawakens Europe, and they become the leading region of the world in terms of domination once again after their dark ages after the fall of Rome. Spain used the West Indies as a staging area for invasions of other places, kind of like Pizarro did, and later on we're going to talk about Hernan Cortez. They also set up the encomienda system, which was similar to the plantation system. Basically, you got the land grant from the king, and then all the natives there, you had to try to convert them to Catholicism because that's the right thing to do, but you could use them as virtual slaves. But you couldn't sell them so they weren't actual slaves, but they came with the land. They were like getting free floor mats on your car. Basically, it was an add-in, which is very insensitive and awful because these are people we're talking about, and we should make light of it. Mexico was conquered by Hernan Cortez, pictured here. He left Cuba, which they knew it was Cuba now, not Japan like Columbus thought, for Mexico in 1519. He conquered the Aztecs in the city of Tenochtitlan, which is actually, at the time, historians and archaeologists think the biggest city in the world. Possibly over 1 million residents, bigger than Paris, bigger than London, bigger than Silt. Wait, Silt didn't exist yet. Never mind. The reasons why, well, they had guns. Guns help. They would go bang and scare people, and they kill people more efficiently than other weapons. They had horses, which when you're fighting hand-to-hand combat is a huge advantage. They had germs, so the natives were dying from smallpox. There actually were some reports of some biological warfare, launching smallpox infected bodies into the city. That's kind of gross. They also had allies. The Aztecs were so hated for sacrificing their neighbors and enslaving them that they had about 20,000 allies. So this handful of Spaniards didn't just conquer this giant city themselves. They had allies. They had disease. And then in a weird twist of history, some Aztecs believed Cortez was the long-lost god Quetzalcoatl, who was supposed to return from the east, and he was like a sun god riding a serpent or a horse, and it kind of fit. He had reddish hair and all that. When they first arrived, they were amazed, but most of the Aztecs realized that wasn't true the second time. But it did, get them in the door to spread those diseases the first time. The emperor, Montezuma, treated Cortez hospitably at first until he learned his true design. And June 30th, 1520, the Aztecs attacked on the Noche Triste, which is Spanish for sad night. And because of that, Cortez laid siege to the city. And here's a painting of the conquering Tenochtitlan. On the left, on the right, you can kind of see some modernized painting of the fighting going on there. And you can see the land, where Cortez went from Cuba. He also had forces moving up from the south. So it wasn't just Cortez's forces to take where's modern-day Mexico City. They took the city by August 13th, 1521, so which took them over a year to take the city. I mean, it's a large city, possibly the biggest in the world. Smallpox ravaged Central America, and so the Aztecs had a hard time putting up a fight because they were so sick, and most of their healthy people were dying. The temples of Tenochtitlan were destroyed and rebuilt as Christian churches. Cortez then intermarried the remaining natives with the Spanish men, which led to the rise of mestizos, which is a mixture of native blood and Spaniard blood, which estimates are around 97% of people from Mexico are mestizo. And Cortez kind of started that trend, which is the mestizo culture. Supposedly, Montezuma got his revenge with people get sick in Mexico. That's what they call it, Montezuma's revenge. Interestingly, here in Colorado, we put the towns of Cortez and Montezuma next to each other. Cool joke, maybe. I don't know. So here's another artist rendition of what Tenochtitlan looked like in the middle of the lake. Oddly, that kind of looks like the United States. You have Florida, and it looks like up towards Maine. I don't know if the artist meant to do that, if it's a subtle hint, but who knows. Uh, Shows some of the grand temples. These were all destroyed. There's not much left except for maybe the foundations. These grand temples of this huge city, this fabulous empire, was wiped out in just a little over a year because of the reasons that we gave there in the previous slides. With the spread of the Spanish Empire, it grew swiftly and impressively. They soon took over most of North America. Well, not most of North America, Southwest America, um, mainly because of disease, though. The natives couldn't put up much of a fight. 160,000 Spaniards subjugated millions of natives, it is estimated. Now, millions of those natives were dying of European diseases, not just smallpox, but other ones. They founded universities in Lima and Mexico City. In 1551, Tenochtitlan was rechristened Ciudad Mexico. They tried to bring civilization there. And they saw it as a mission from God, even though they're there to get rich and get famous, like Cortez did. They saw it as a way to spread civilization, to spread God's ways. And so they started universities in Lima, which is Peru, where the Inca were, and Mexico City is where the Aztecs were. By this time, England and France are catching up on the New World exploration, which pertains more to the United States, especially with the founding of our country in the 13 colonies. And so they're starting to get in the act a little bit later. They weren't as well established as the Spanish. They didn't have as much wealth and power at the time. You have Giovanni Caboto, who we know as John Cabot, Giovanni de Verranzo, and Jacques Cartier explored North America. So these are some of the explorers from the French and the English. Spain established St. Augustine in Florida in 1565 to protect their borders from the encroachment of the French and the English. And St. Augustine has the dubious distinction, not dubious, but the distinction of being the first permanent settlement in what is the United States of America. 1565, I believe there's still a lot of the things there. It's kind of a touristy attraction in Florida. You also have Don Juan de Onate, who led an expedition to attack the Pueblo natives, which is kind of in our region, in the Four Corners region. Also, they wanted the city of Santa Fe was a major trading post for the natives even then, and so the Spanish desired that. At the Battle of Acoma in 1599, the Spanish cut off 1 foot of every survivor. As a reminder to don't mess with the Spanish. They're really cruel and mean. If you really study how the Spanish treated the Native Americans, it's probably the most barbaric and brutal of any of the European countries that came, if you really want to get into it. They then established Santa Fe as their own post in 1609 in the province of New Mexico, long before Breaking Bad, in which I'm wearing my Breaking Bad t-shirt, in Santa Fe, not Albuquerque. And the Roman Catholic Church was the central institution of the Spanish lands. It was the one that gave out the medicine and provided schooling and spiritual guidance, and even food, and so the Catholic Church is really at the center of civilization in the New World. In 1680, you have the Pope's Rebellion, where the Pueblo rebels destroyed every Catholic church in New Mexico. They did not go lightly against the Spanish. And so this stuff's going on kind of on the other side of the United States while the Pilgrims and the Puritans are founding Massachusetts, far away from the founding United States, but it is interesting for our neck of the woods. It took nearly 50 years for the Spanish to reclaim that land, well into the 18th century. Other explorations and settlements going on. You have Robert de La Salle, who went down the Mississippi for the French, kind of establishing that region as a French stronghold, strong French influence, especially like in Louisiana and New Orleans. You have Spanish settlers that reached into Texas, as they call it, Tejas. San Antonio was established in 1716. You have Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo, who explored the California coast, went up the coast in 1542. And then you have Father Junipero Serra, who founded missions up and down the California coast starting in 1769. I'm not sure where I found this picture on the internet, but you have a little surfing Father Junipero Serra. I didn't know he was a surfer, but he was credited with founding many of the missions that we know, which became towns and then later major cities like San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, and San Francisco. If you're going there, be sure to wear flowers in your hair. He founded 21 missions in all. These Spanish misdeeds, though, led to the birth of the Black Legend, which was the false concept that the conquerors only tortured, killed, and enslaved natives, which I think I've been perpetuating. Oops. They did bring civilization. They did help Christianize them, and then they brought some of these cultures into the modern world. There was so much death and destruction. Though the Black Legend is there. There is elements of truth, but it wasn't always so bad. Most, a lot of the missionaries, especially Hunter they had great intentions. It wasn't just trying to torture, kill, and enslave, and get rich. And so the picture here, you have the El Camino Real, which is the royal road, which connected all the missions in the 1700s. Many of the cultures were actually grafted together. You have the Mestizo culture, and then up and down the Californios, they had their own distinct cultures on their rancheros, and that was there in place when America was founded, and eventually when America spread west. Those distinct cultures were there, and many of those things still survive to this day. So that concludes chapter 1. We'll be doing some of these questions here in class. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment or something. I hope you enjoy it. I hope I'm not making a fool out of myself too badly, because I'm good at that. Thank you, and we'll see you in chapter 2.